Ladies and gentlemen, celebrating 5 years as a podcaster, introducing Nate the Great!
You know, normally I would save that theme music for the horror-themed episodes on this, but I'm using this as a special occasion because, ladies and gentlemen, I am NateFNGreat, and let's discriminate, shall we? This is a major shot at the company known as World Wrestling Entertainment, who had a pretty busy week this past week, in which they let go a couple of their employees. And by a couple, I mean, what the hell is wrong with you, WWE? They released quite a few people here, and I have the list right here. We go from Mojo Rawley, Wesley Blake, Bo Dallas, Kalisto, Tucker, Chelsea Green, Mickie James, Peyton Royce, Billie Kay, Samoa Joe. Yeah, one of them definitely is very touchy with me because I've seen this dude in Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, and he was one of the greatest things, and the only thing they did with him in WWE, other than that awesome run in NXT, was have him scream, "Oh, Wendy!" to AJ Styles, because, you know, that mattered. So this is a huge, long rant about these releases, as well as how they've been mishandling their stars. So I definitely want to talk about this, you guys, because this is infuriating. I did not watch WrestleMania this past weekend because there were so many things that were just tainted by Vince McMahon that caused me to just have so much lack of faith in the product. And it just continues as time goes on. This being another prime example of that. I've even heard that the Raw after WrestleMania was absolutely atrocious, one of the worst ever. Go figure, because they don't know how to make great storylines, apparently. But I want to kind of talk a little bit more about some of this. This is going to be more rant towards the people that they've let go, and I might even sprinkle in a couple things that they're doing right now. But I wanted to kind of get this one out of the way. So, Mojo Rawley, he didn't really accomplish much in WWE. He did a run as the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner, but other than that, they really didn't do anything. They tried to, amp his character up a little bit. They had that deal where he had the broken mirror gimmick. Did that weird thing with the face paint. It's one of those things where I think that he was bound to be gone, but I still feel like there was more that they could do with him. They probably could have sent him back down to NXT because he was still a big-time star during that point. He and Zack Ryder had a great, run as the Hype Bros. I was shocked when they broke them up, because I thought they could have held on to that tag team run for quite a while. But at the same time, you have to find ways to keep yourself relevant. I just don't think that Mojo Rawley found that thing that would just keep him relevant. So I think that Mojo Rawley is one that I kind of saw coming, unfortunately. But it is still really sad departing for that. So Mojo Rawley, hopefully things are going well with you in your future endeavors. Honestly, I think it'd be kind of cool to see you come here to Wisconsin, maybe compete in ACW or Frontline Pro. Be a kind of nice deal here, because he was one of the guys from the Green Bay Packers, so why the hell not? Wesley Blake. So Blake is another interesting person because of the fact that he was more just that guy that was a part of the tag team division, and they really didn't do much with him regardless of who he was paired with. Whether it was that, Wesley and Blake duo, whether it was the, Forgotten Sons deal that they did for a while, nothing really stuck with him. And I don't think he would have made it as a big-time star. So that was kind of another one where they just kind of brought him to the main roster with really no plans for him at all. So this is another one where I kind of understand it, but I think that he just got the short end of the stick when it came to it, because he just didn't have anything really that stuck. So again, Wesley Blake, hopefully you do well in your future endeavors, and hope to see you in the wrestling ring sooner rather than later. Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas is one that honestly kind of stings a bit, because of the fact that he is such an entertaining guy. He and Curtis Axel were probably one of the most entertaining tag teams in quite a long time. You remember them as the B Team or as the Miz Taraj. I mean, Bo Dallas, in and of himself, he had a pretty decent run as a single star. He was the only third NXT champion. And when he was doing, Bo Dallas, Bo leaving deal, he had his hands up in the air doing the victory lap around the rings. That was funny, dude. That was some really good shit. But I guess certain people didn't understand the gimmick behind it. They didn't understand the power behind it. But I'm certainly hoping that, as time goes on, he definitely does, get to come back into a wrestling ring and continue to be entertaining. Although I have heard rumors that he's been looking to kind of end his career, which is unfortunate. I think he could have done quite a bit more, but at the same time, I totally understand that. Bo Dallas, you are an absolute treasure in wrestling, and I am hoping that we see more of you in the future, whether it's in an entertaining role, whether it's in a wrestling role. Dude, you definitely are representing your legacy, your heritage so well. I'm so looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you. Next up, we have Kalisto. This is another guy who just had a lot of potential. Oh my gosh, this is one of those guys who they just royally screwed with almost every which way that you can possibly imagine. He is a former United States champion, a former Cruiserweight champion. He's one of those guys who, in all honesty, if giving the right character and the right story, he could be, the next Rey Mysterio, in all honesty. He didn't need to have, the 619, but he was definitely a very charismatic star, very good in the ring. I still remember the fact that I was hanging out with a couple friends of mine when I was a part of the Squared Circle podcast, and one of the things that I remember most about it was our reaction when Kalisto defeated Alberto Del Rio for the United States Championship for the first time. That was something that I don't think any of us were expecting to really be so overly excited about, but at the same time, it was one of those things where, we liked the guy. He was definitely one of those characters who just connected well with fans. And he just needed to have, the right set of opponents, the right kind of storyline, and he would have been one of those guys that just would have excelled. The only thing I really hate is that we never got that big payoff between Kalisto and Sin Cara when they were part of the Lucha Dragons, because They were an absolutely great tag team. And the problem was the fact that they kind of just fizzled them out, as all great, teams have been in WWE. Oh my gosh, just no. Kalisto would, end his kind of run with, being a part of Lucha House Party. There we go. And he was kind of in a bit of a shuffle with them. It was just one of those things where didn't really think too much of him. He was kind of the veteran that they kind of had there. Had they given him more of maybe like a leader role, and then they could have built up to matches between him and Lince Dorado, as well as Grand Metalik. Oh my gosh, the matches they could have had would have been just fantastic to see. But unfortunately, that did not take place because WWE hates wrestling, especially tag team wrestling, apparently. So to Kalisto, hoping nothing but the best for you, man. You definitely are one of those guys that I am hoping are going to make it big. Honestly, I would love to see him in Impact Wrestling or going overseas to New Japan. That would be something to see. Hey, speaking of tag teams that WWE apparently hated, Tucker was one that got released. Oh my gosh, this is one that's infuriating because I was a fan of Heavy Machinery. I still think that they're a great team. One of those teams that unfortunately did not get, a tag team title run because of either stupidity or just because they had nothing for them to kind of build that up. Much like, Enzo Amore and Cass, I would definitely throw in there. It's just mind-boggling to see that. Tucker is one of those guys who definitely was a great support. I think as time goes on, would have been a good, big guy star that they could have had they, given him a little bit more personality, given him a bit more, direction. But it was just one of those things where I absolutely hated the fact that they just broke it up because of the fact that, Otis just so happened to have the Money in the Bank deal. They were having like a good run. They were having these deals. But it was one of those things where fame got in the way and just... I hated that. And they didn't do much when they had him traded over to Raw either. So great job on just making him feel like he was nothing, WWE. So Tucker, hopefully you definitely, are doing well with your future endeavors, and hopefully we see you break out as a huge star on the independent scenes. Next up, we have Chelsea Green. Oh my lord, Chelsea Green, or as I always refer to her as Mrs. Zack Ryder. Well, now it's Mrs. Matt Cardona now because legal things. Chelsea Green was one of those people that just unfortunately had a bad luck run of everything. She had the look, she had the charisma, she had everything. The problem was that injuries just got in the way, and unfortunately she just did not have the opportunity to really shine as a wrestler in WWE. So it's kind of one of those things where unfortunately if you're injury prone, WWE does not give you that chance to move you up in the world. They're just going to say, well, we're just going to have you kind of in the background for the time being. I mean, that's essentially what happened with Dolph Ziggler. This was a guy who we literally thought was going to be a headline guy, and he was for about a month until he had that concussion. Then they were just like, well, we can't trust him in a world title picture again until he had that match at SummerSlam with Dean Ambrose, which we all know how that ended. Yikes. But Chelsea Green is a very, very talented individual. I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. It's going to be something where she may show up in AEW or her old stomping grounds in Impact Wrestling. I think that she would also make a huge impact in the Ring of Honor division. The sky's the limit for her. She is such an amazing worker and such a sweetheart to meet in person. I am looking forward to that day where, paths cross again. I get the chance to talk to her about, how she's doing, how everything is going with her. Mickie James. So, I believe the last time we saw Mickie was a match against with her and Asuka, and she got injured during that matchup. So that might have been the final nails to the coffin for her, or it could have been a situation where with Mickie, she's accomplished a lot in WWE. She's been a Divas champion. She's been the women's champion. She never did get a run with the tag championships, which is kind of a bummer. So I think that she really could have had, a great run with Alexa Bliss if they would have, paired them back up again, or, have just her be like the mentor to an up and rising star that's coming up. That would just be amazing to see that. With Mickie, I know that she's going to have, some great endeavors going on. One of the things I know that she's going to be doing, she's going to have more time to record GAW TV shows, which, by the way, you can check out on YouTube. It's absolutely amazing. Features SoCal Val, Lisa Marie Barron, as well as Mickie James herself. So definitely check that out. Cheap plug. So with Mickie, I feel like she's going to definitely have, some great things going her way. Maybe they'll have her debut in NWA Power, and she works with, her husband, Nick Aldis. That'd be kind of an interesting deal. I'm just saying. So, Mickie, I have a lot of faith in you, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you. I also want to say that to Chelsea Green as well. I do believe I missed out on that. So, like I said, Chelsea, looking forward to when our paths cross again, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you. Oh, here is where I am going to be a very bitter individual. Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. The Iconics. Two women who have a vastly entertaining duo. They have very entertaining characters. They were not always the best technically in the ring, but they definitely did their job. They definitely made you, like them with their characteristics, and they also made you hate them maybe because of their wrestling. They were kind of, the polarizing deal of what, the women's wrestling has come to be, which works. It's one of those things where I'm not going to say that they were horrible people. They were horrible in the ring. No. It's just one of those things where, unfortunately, when you try to do certain moves, unfortunately things happen and you end up on Botchamania. Just saying. But they were doomed at the point when they broke them up. I'm not even kidding. It was one of those things where when they made that stipulation to have the Riot Squad versus Iconics and the losing team had to disband, that's when I knew, okay, this is not going to end well. And it didn't. The Iconics lost. They broke up. It's like, why? These two have so much energy to continue to utilize, and you blew it up. You messed it up, WWE. You fucked it up, WWE. You could have let them have another tag team title run, which I think would have been great. They could have done, some great, talk show segments. They could have been just absolutely amazing, heels that everybody would love to see get beat up. Just, that's frustrating. Peyton Royce and Billie Kay definitely deserved a lot better than Peyton Royce pairing up with random people on the Raw division, and then having Billie Kay kind of passing out her resume on SmackDown, which I think that one of my friends, Josh, thought was funny. And, sometimes it could have been funny, but other times it's like they really have nothing for her than to just pass out her resume. Just no. They could have done so much more with these women. And honestly, I am hoping that they go to Impact Wrestling and get into the Knockouts division, especially the tag team division, because that would be fun. That would be great. I would be all for it. The Iconics definitely deserve a lot better. And I know that they're going to come up with a better name. But if we've witnessed the end of the Iconics, it's one of those things where it was, again, too soon. And all they to blame is WWE. So Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, definitely wishing you guys the best in your future endeavors, but also hoping that we see brighter future for you two, because you are absolutely amazing. Now we go to the headliner, Samoa Joe. Samoan freaking Joe. You have the balls to release Samoa Joe. Because why? I don't understand it. This was a guy who literally was delivering great matches in WWE, especially in NXT. He had his pairing with, AJ Styles, which was great. Albeit it wasn't perfect, but it was still great. And he was great as an announcer. So why release this guy who literally could give you more diamonds than anything in your dog shit company at this point? This is where I hate this so much because Samoa Joe is one of those guys who is super, super talented. And he still has a lot to give to wrestling. I was just talking to Josh and Jay, and we were talking about, where we could see Samoa Joe going. And a lot of us have been saying, going back to TNA, he goes back to Impact Wrestling. Samoa Joe could be one of those guys who goes to AEW, and I'll tell you this, I would love to see him get in a feud with Taz. That's me, personally. It's just one of those things that I absolutely would love to see. The contrast between, you had the human suplex machine versus the Samoan submission machine. Just having that kind of dynamic. And the guys have had history in the past, so they could play off of that. There's so much that they could do with Samoa Joe. He has so much that he can deliver and so much that he can give to wrestling. Now, if he's at the point now where, his career is done, I understand that. It's one of those things where I would really hate to see that be the end of the run. But at the same time, he's given so much, and there's only so much more that you can give to the wrestling world. So, as time goes on, we'll see what happens with Samoa Joe. I would personally love to see him come up here to Wisconsin for a Water State Wrestling Con. Book that ACW. They would love to see that. And I would just love to see where he goes from here. Out of all these people, Samoa Joe is the one that I'm most interested in seeing what they do with him. We will wait and see. And as you kind of heard with this huge entire rant that I have gone on, I have no ill will feelings towards any of the individuals on this list. I have no ill will to anybody that I've talked about. I definitely think that they are all talented people. They were just underutilized and misused by WWE. So this is kind of me going on a bash WWE deal, but everybody's done that. So I'm just adding to the pile, really. Main thing I will say when it comes to WWE is they need to have more creative freedom. They need to be allowed to have more opinions on the stories that they are involved with, instead of it just being a playing for one man, pal. Just playing for that audience of one is just stupid. You're playing for an audience of getting close to just 1 million people. I looked at the ratings, trust me. In 2004, you had 4 million people watching. Now you're barely able to reach 2 million. It's just absolutely infuriating. I hate the fact that WWE has been so tainted by one individual, and it's because and people are scared to speak out because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to, miss out on the fact that, they're working their dream job. They're working at the place they've wanted to do this since they were a kid. You got to be able to speak out, though. And there are people that have. There are people that have definitely given their opinions about how they feel about certain individuals in the company, how they feel about certain ways the company has been run. It's just one of those things where I'm not wishing any, ill will towards anybody, but at this point, Vince McMahon needs to take off the headphones, head home, and in honesty, stay in the jurisdiction of his home. Vince McMahon is at a point where he needs to retire. He's given so much, and I appreciate all the good memories that he's created, but now we're at the point where money is being wasted. Money is getting, funneling down, it's dwindling down along with the ratings. Bad decisions are being made as far as business-wise. This whole thing with WWE and Peacock is just dumb because of the fact that you have to now go from one subscription to another, and you're having so much of the content cut from Peacock. I get it. They're nationally owned, and they are, probably aiming towards more like family-related content. But at the same time, you can't just erase so many of these, moments and memories that they had. Now, certain ones I can understand, like the whole deal where Vince McMahon dropped the N-bomb. That I can let slide. But if you're going to erase stuff like, the Nation of Domination being mocked by Degeneration X just because of the fact that Xbox had blackface on it. Come on. I get it. It's one of those things where, back in the day, maybe that was racially insensitive. But at the same time, it wasn't one of those things where he was trying to be racist. It was just out of fun. They were trying to make fun of, the characters they were playing. It's just one of those things where we see as a species that we've, how we've evolved to now being just crying about everything, making stupid decisions and getting paid for it. It's absolutely infuriating. Hopefully as time goes on, things are going to get better. Right now, it's at a point where it's like, there is a part of me that hopes that the mask deal is slowly starting to, dissipate, because obviously people need to have fresh oxygen going into their heads because there's so many people that are not thinking straight. It's at that point now. Well, this has been Nate the Effing Great. This has been the Game Changer Podcast. This has been another edition of Discrimi-NATE. Thank you guys so much for listening in. Be sure to check me out on Twitter at RealFNGame as well as on the Instagram. Be sure to also check out the podcast on so many different podcasting formats. And right now I am just relaxing a bit before Water City Wrestling Con, so that's going to be a great show, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. It's just going to be an absolutely wonderful show, you guys. Definitely we'll talk more about it in depth in a future episode. So, with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening in. Stay safe, be smart, and remember that you can make a difference one day at a time by being a game changer. Have a good one, you guys. See you later.